Again, another honorary Jamaican, Sir John Cachazola. Oh my goodness! No, listen, we have to big up my ladies and the First Lady of Brampton and Little Theo. Oh my, welcome. And did you notice his lovely little Jamaican onesie? Yes, big up to Mr. Theo. Oh my, no, I've lost my whole train of thought. And we have, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome the first honorary Jamaican mayor in the entire country, Patrick Brown.
Well, talk about a force of nature, Kathy McDonald. Thank you, Kathy, for loving our city and loving the community so much. A big hand for Kathy. A few things I want to say. First of all, this is Teadore's first visit to City Hall, and we thought the appropriate time to make his first visit was for this flag raising. And Kathy actually bought him this onesie where it says "One Love." Although Charmaine told me don't call him Teadore. With the Jamaican community, you call him Teadore, right?
No,
Teadore. Teadore. Okay. Well, we're going to have to work on that. I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Consul General Wilkes, for the gift of the Jamaican community in the city of Brampton, because our city is so lucky, fortunate to have this dynamic community in our city. And I look at people that have thrown their heart into the well-being of our city, and you see the Jamaican Canadian community doing that in spades. You know, you look at the United Achievers, Marjorie and her group, the way they love the youth in our community, the way they love the seniors in our community. You know, I look at people who are trailblazers. You look at the Garnet Mannings, who was a fighter for our city. You look what Charmaine is doing now. You look at Mark Andrews, of course, from the police, one of the real leaders in policing in Peel Region, and someone who loves our city. The community has given so much to Brampton, and this flag raising is a celebration of 57 years, but it's also a celebration of the community here. And I think everyone has a story about why they love Jamaica. And it's not just because we daydream about Jamaica in January. It's because of that sense of love, that sense of friendliness, that sense that we're all in it together. That sense of community that you really see the Jamaican community exude. And it just makes you thankful. You know, whether it's that neighbor or that friend that you got to know who leaves you that warm friendship. I remember one of my first family trips was actually to Jamaica. And when you go on trips when you're a little bit older, they're not as significant in your life, but your first family trips you never forget. And I remember in 1986 and 1988, my dad took us on a family trip to Jamaica. And at the time, you'll know my age now, I was 8 years old in 1986. And as an 8-year-old, it's going to a different country is one of the a moment that you'll never forget. But I still remember, and I still have those photos as a child going to Rick's Cafe and jumping off the cliff, or Dunn's River Falls. My grandmother was on the trip as well, walking down that Dunn River Falls with my grandmother. And those were moments that stay with you for the rest of your life. And I wanted to be here not only to raise the flag, to express my thanks for the beauty of the community in our city, but also to read a proclamation. And I'd be remiss if I didn't actually acknowledge, we recognized all the dignitaries. We didn't recognize Brampton Fire. Brampton Fire is always here at all these events, so thank you for being part of this. So we have our Emancipation a declaration that we thought we would present today rather than at council tomorrow. And I'm going to present this to Kathy on behalf of City Council and Marjorie. Okay. And Marjorie, Kathy, I'll just read this. In March 1793, Chloe Cooley, an enslaved black woman in Upper Canada, was bound and thrown into a boat to be sold in the United States. Peter Martin, who was a free black man, saw what happened and asked another person who witnessed the incident to relay it to John Graves Simcoe. Simcoe was moved to pass a new legislation act called an Act to Prevent the Further Introduction of Slaves and to limit the term of contracts for servitude on July 9th of that year. It was one of the first pieces of legislation aimed at prohibiting slavery in North America. The act outlawed the purchase of new slaves and freed the children of slaves when they reached 21 years old. 40 years later, the Britain's Slavery Abolition Act abolished slavery in the British Empire. It received royal assent on August 28, 1833, and took effect on August 1st, 1834. The act freed nearly 1 million slaves in Canada as well as in the Caribbean and South Africa. The passage of the British Imperial Act and the Act to Limit Slavery in Upper Canada made Ontario a beacon of freedom and hope and launched the Underground Railroad, which escaping slaves found their way to Ontario and freedom. In 2008, the province designated August 1st as Emancipation Day, marking the end of slavery in the British Empire in the mid-19th century. Across the province, it is known by the following: Colin O'Bye Day in Ottawa, Joseph Brant Day in Burlington, John Galt Day in Guelph. Outside the province, the holiday is known as Natal Day in Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, Regatta Day in Newfoundland, and British Columbia Day in British Columbia. The city of Brampton, which is home to a rich mosaic of communities, cultures across the African diaspora who have been affected by slavery, but who, despite these challenges often faced and still do today, continue to contribute to the fabric and the foundation of our community. Today in the city of Brampton, we commemorate the anniversary of the enactment of the British Imperial Act known as Emancipation Day. And so this is to be declared tomorrow, Emancipation Day in the city of Brampton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.